Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stacy. This is my August reading wrap-up, which includes the Keep Me in Suspense read-a-thon books that I read. I actually did okay with it. I did have to tap out on book 5, but we'll get to that. The first book that I read in August was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Well, I've only read 2 books by Riley Sager in the past. One I hated and one I really liked. So I knew that this could go either way. And luckily, I really did like this one. This one was set in a creepy old apartment building in New York, and I loved the setting of this. It felt like claustrophobic, like locked room kind of feeling. And it had characters that you just weren't sure of through the whole thing. It reminded me a lot of Rosemary's Baby. But yeah, I absolutely love the setting of this. And it had a very crazy plot. And sometimes when plots are too crazy in thrillers, that makes me not like them. I want my thrillers to be kind of grounded in reality. And sometimes thrillers go way off the rails. This one was like edging towards that, but I still really enjoyed it. So I gave it 4 stars. It was really fast paced. It had me sucked in. I had to know what was going on. I liked it. The next one that I read was for the read-a-thon, and that was The End of the Road by Christy, Barrit. I gave that one 5 stars. No surprise there. That is, I think it was book 6 of the True Crime Junkies series that I've been reading through. I love all of them. This one was written differently, though, than the rest of them, and I was honestly wondering, like, wait, did Christy Barrit write this? Because it was so different from the 5 previous ones. This one had 2 different storylines going on at the same time, and it followed 2 of the main characters from the podcast, and they were separate from the rest of the group. The 2 different storylines that were happening were very different. And then there was a huge twist at the end that I did not see coming. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. All of these books are set in Alaska, so the setting is really fun. I just love this series. I cannot praise it enough. 5 stars if I didn't already say that. The next one that I read was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. And this one has been on my TBR for years. I've been wanting to read this for years, and for whatever reason, I kept putting it off, and I finally got to it. I listened to it on audio. This one I gave 4 stars. It was very enjoyable. An old man is murdered, and Poirot shows up and has to figure out who did it. I love Poirot. He is my favorite out of him and Miss Marple. I love Poirot. But in this one especially, he was quite snarky. He was very funny. And I really love when he gets his little attitude. And there was another character, one of the main characters' sister. And the sister was very nosy and like had to get all the information on everybody. And she reminded me a lot of myself, honestly. I always have to know what's going on in my neighborhood. I'm the one that's like peering out the window, like, oh, who's that? What's happening? You know? So she just reminded me a lot of myself. So yeah, I really liked the characters in this one, and it was very enjoyable. Again, I did not guess who done it, never do. But yeah, 4 stars. The next one I read was Strategic Plan by Lynn, Shannon. This was another book for the read-a-thon. I didn't write down what prompts these books went for, so sorry about that. But this was the second book out of the 5. This one I gave 5 stars, and this was the second book in this series of books, and I couldn't find the name of the series, but you don't have to read them in order, and it all kind of goes around military guys, former military guys. So this one involves a woman who's a vet tech, I think she was. She had some pets, and the pets were really cute. She really liked her pets, and she gets into big trouble, and a military man comes along to save her. So that's the gist. Anyway, it was very fast-paced. It was a really good love story. This was romantic suspense. I really liked how this one played out. I love the characters. I love the group of guys that are the military guys. And I think like each book involves a different one of the guys. They just seem like the best group of men, and I would love to be friends with them and hang out with them. They have like cookouts, barbecues, stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I would do that for them. I really liked them. The next book that I read was Queen of Hearts by Heather Day Gilbert. This one also was for the read-a-thon, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one, gosh, I wanted to give this one 5. I really did, because the majority of the book I really liked. It was about a woman who's a thriller author, and she is being stalked. And so she gets the advice to go stay in a remote cabin in West Virginia and to like hide out from the stalker. And even though she is hiding out, things are still happening to her. And so you're trying to figure out, you know, who is this person that is like going after her. Crazy things are happening in this house that she's staying in. I love the setting, the remoteness of this cabin in West Virginia. It was really cool. I liked her for the most part. She has high functioning autism, and I really did like how that was represented in the book, although I do feel like the author kind of talked about it a bit too much. I only say this because both of my kids and my husband are high functioning autistic. So like I kind of, you know, I live with it and I kind of have an understanding of it. So nothing that the author wrote was wrong at all. And she writes in the author's note that her daughter has the same thing, and she got a lot from her daughter. So nothing in it is wrong, but I just kind of felt like it was mentioned maybe a little too much, and it was kind of over the top, maybe. Wasn't bad though. But yeah, I really enjoyed the thriller stalker aspect of this story. Loved everything until we got to the very end. And when I found out the motive behind the person who was doing the things, I was so disappointed. I was like, what is this? Why? This makes no sense. The motive made no sense whatsoever. It was the worst motive I've probably ever heard in my life. And I've read a lot of mysteries, watched a lot of mysteries. This motive was terrible. So yeah, everything up until like 85% was great. But that kind of ruined it for me. It was just so weird. And then I even was talking to my daughter and my husband about this book. And I was explaining the premise of it and the motive of the bad person. And both of my husband and my daughter were like, what? No. So anyway, it wasn't just me. But yeah, 3.5 stars for that book. I would read more from this author because I really did like it up until the end. But yeah, the end really disappointed me. The next one I read was Grave Pursuits by Elle. This one I gave 3 stars to. This was also a book for the read-a-thon. It was romantic suspense. This one had the most faith out of all of the books. It was very high in faith content, which I loved. That was great. But the main character, the woman, drove me absolutely insane. This takes place in like a Pennsylvania forest, like a national forest in Pennsylvania. So again, I love the setting of this. And the main woman is a park ranger, and she comes across a human skull and has to call in the detectives and everything. And then they bring in cadaver dogs and they find more bodies that are buried in the area. So there's this whole investigation. And one of the detectives that comes to investigate is an ex-boyfriend of hers. Well, like the ex-boyfriend, the guy that got away kind of thing. And she has so much animosity towards this guy. And they broke up when they were like 17, like right after high school. But she just has so much against him and kind of thinks of him as still this like 17-year-old kid, even though this is like 10 years later. She does a lot of things in this story that are very childish, things that you would expect like a 15-year-old girl to do, not like a late 20s-year-old girl to do. Plus, she does not take her safety seriously throughout this whole book at all. Like, you know, if somebody says, hey, the bad guy is out to get you, he wants to kill you, and she'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to work tomorrow, everything's fine. I'm sorry, what? Like, you're crazy. No. It was like that through the whole book. She drove me insane, especially since she's a park ranger, part of law enforcement. She should know better. She's trained for these sorts of things. Drove me absolutely nuts. Also, there was something that happens in this book, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but something happens in this book that was so devastating. It really tore my heart out, and it made me so depressed. I want to say it happened at like 60, 70%. And from that point on, I was like, I don't even care. I'm so sad now. Like, I'm just so sad. I really wish that that thing did not play out the way that it did. Yeah, I was so sad. Anyway, 3 stars. I wasn't the biggest fan of this one. Next book I read was The Pie Contest Catastrophe by Brooke Peterson. This is a cozy mystery, and it's one that I had mentioned in one of my previous videos, cozy mysteries that are on Kindle Unlimited. Sad to say, at the time that I posted that video, it was on Kindle Unlimited, but it currently is not anymore. So, but I did read the book. It was a novella. It was like 90 pages. It was cute, clean, and quick. That's what I wrote for it. It's set in a town in Nevada, and it had quirky characters. It was set in October, lots of fall vibes. The main character worked in a coffee shop, so there was lots with like coffee and pumpkin spice. There was a pumpkin pie contest, so there was lots of talk about pumpkin pie. It was very fall-esque, and it was a quick, easy read. There was no issues with it. So yeah, I liked it, and I gave it 4 stars. I also wanted to mention 2 books that I got about halfway through, but then I put down, and I intend on picking them up later. The first one is Blood Lies. This is book 1 of the Red Wing Saga by Sharon K. Gilbert. This was recommended to me by Christy at Christy's Purple Library. We had a little meetup recently, and we were talking about books, and she mentioned that this was a historical fiction mystery that had like Jack the Ripper vibes. It was like kind of a retelling of Jack the Ripper, but with supernatural elements. Sign me up for that. So this is part of a pretty large series, and I started reading it. Like I said, I got about halfway through. But then when August hit, I wanted to jump into the suspense books. I was worried that if I didn't like immediately start suspense, I wouldn't, you know, do well with the read-a-thon. So I put that one down for now, but I will go back to it. And then the other one was Her Darkest Secret by Jessica R. Patch. This one was, it's the first book in a series, and I don't know the name of the series, but the last book is The Garden Girls that I read recently. So I read book 3 first without realizing it was part of a series. So I wanted to go back and read book 1. And so this was the 5th book in the read-a-thon that I was reading, and it was the 5th book that was involving like serial killer stuff, and I was getting depressed. After 4 books in a row with killers in it, I just really couldn't do it again. So I tapped out. What I listened to, I was listening to it. What I listened to was really good. I was enjoying the story, but I was just starting to feel really down and just like, I don't know if I can do this. So I put that one down. I'll pick that one up again later when like my mood is better. But yeah, I switched out of that one into like just a regular Christian historical book because I needed that palate cleanser. But yeah, those are the books that I read in August, and 2 that I did not finish. But yeah, I am pretty proud of myself for this read-a-thon. I read 4 out of the 5 for the prompts, and you didn't have to read all 5. You know, you can just read 1 and that's enough, but I did really good. And I usually stink at read-a-thons, so that was a big deal for me. So yeah, guys, that is all I've got for this video. I hope everybody had a great August and you have a great September, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.